Welcome to the Intrazone Roadmap Pitstop July 2021 edition. This is a bonus monthly boosted show that answers that burning boosted question in your mind: what's rolling out now for SharePoint and related technology in Microsoft 365? I'm Mark Cashman, Senior Product Manager on the Microsoft 365 marketing team, here to help boost the ongoing record straight. This month, I talk with Nancy Handa, Program Manager on the SharePoint team focused on pages and news. You'll hear Nancy's perspective on how she and team make it easy to create and publish, including the continued strategy of bringing SharePoint experiences into Microsoft Teams. This month, we saw the ability to edit a SharePoint page when it's a tab in a Teams channel start to roll out. And Nancy gives us a great audible tour on how it works, highlighting several supported scenarios, plus a light teaser on future design. Beyond the breadth of page and news innovation, we'll focus on everything that landed this month, a few related items, and always the fun teasers looking into next month. This podcast is your 30-minute roadmap boost to stay ahead of the ever-curving Microsoft 365 roadmap. Now, I feel like I've said the word boost a few times. I wonder if that means it's time to kick back and get informed about all the tech that's boosted out in July 2021. Boost, boost, boost! We'll start with employee engagement. Billionaires can boost into space, but can they boost SharePoint news? I don't think so. Last month, we talked about the release of the Auto News Digest, including ways that the email can be customized for your organization. Well, it's time to give all of that a boost, a big old news boost. The SharePoint News Service delivers an intelligent view of news, meaning it's targeted to you based on factors like your role or location, and further personalized based on signals in Microsoft Graph about where, how, and with whom you work. And now, with those special priority announcements, ones that need a boost of visibility, you can push through the AI algorithms and give them a bit of the old human prioritization vim and vigor that can't be missed, or is less likely to. Now you can prioritize important news and announcements so they appear at the top of the employee news feeds across Microsoft 365. You can boost the visibility of a news article for a set time until an employee has seen your content or until a viewer has seen the item in their feed a set number of times. This applies only to news posts published within an organizational news site, one that you've deemed for the organization. It does not apply to team news. Moving on. Modern pages are getting collapsible sections. Star Trek coined the phrase, space, the final frontier. Astronaut Krista McAuliffe said, that's our new frontier out there, and it's everybody's business to know about space. And as we know, in space, no one can hear you scream. Okay, maybe we ignore that last one. Thanks for that, Ridley Scott. We'll just let Ripley and the Xenomorph and the Nostromo drift off into, you guessed it, space. The real deal now for SharePoint pages is that you have the ability to show page sections in an accordion view, collapsed or expanded. And, you guessed it, when you make sections collapsible, you save space on the page or in your news article. It also makes it a lot easier to navigate dense information. You can give each section a header and set the default of each section to be expanded or collapsed when somebody first arrives on the page. For your readers, then, it's a simple click or tap to expand or collapse. Captain's log, stardate 2021 8.2. We were wrong about space. It's the cloud. It's the final frontier. Now, let us drift back to Earth to hear more from Nancy Handa about editing SharePoint pages and news right from within Microsoft Teams. So we now turn to talk to Nancy Handa, who is going to tell us all about all the things that she owns, and we'll get into the details of what she has helped ship with her team recently in this past month. But Nancy, welcome to the IntraZone.
Thanks, Mark, for having me here.
So we are virtual, and we certainly work on the same team, SharePoint. We're both in the Redmond space in the Redmond area, and you and I often work with the Teams team, but certainly you are focused on building the features, and I'm focused on making some good noise out in the public about them. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do on the SharePoint team, but some of the areas that you cover?
Of course. I am a PM on SharePoint side, and I work closely on SharePoint News. And how do we bring SharePoint News and pages in Teams? That's the new focus area. And we are working on how can we bring some goodness with SharePoint and Teams working together.
From an integration perspective, I imagine as you're designing and planning features or just updates so that features work better when you think of SharePoint in Teams, I know that you and the team do a lot of experiments and review a lot of data. Can you explain a little bit that behind the scenes when you're thinking about the good metrics that lead into then good design and good implementation? What does that mean in relation to SharePoint and Teams?
So basically, there's a lot of pivot in the overall perspective of the team on being more data-driven. We have been using our experimentation platform to see where do we see highest user engagement, what can we do to build an awesome experience from user standpoint. So behind the scenes, we will run out experiments, A/B experiments to see where would the users find it easier for them to engage with the different features we are launching within SharePoint Pages and News. And while we integrate this with Teams, this becomes even more important. Now we're thinking about two products and how we can have an awesome experience where a user does not feel that they are having to move between the two different products. So the end goal is we want to ensure consistency. And if we don't focus on getting some qualitative feedback, we try to look at customer funnels, user flows, and certain flights that give us good insight into how our users engaging with our newly launched features. So that's been a big focus in last couple of years, I would say. So that's also a reason how we are planning and imagining our new funded items, new areas we want to focus on.
One of the things I heard you talk about from a strategy perspective as you're getting the data back in what individuals and what teams are experiencing is that it's a consistent experience. And if we were to look through the lens of the SharePoint design team that you work with, your designers, there's the Teams team that has a certain look and feel to it. When you think of something like we'll talk about in a second, a SharePoint page inside of Teams, what specifically are some of the design elements that play into that better experience, that better integration, and I think as you put it, that consistent experience?
That's a great question. So this was something which we were pretty thoughtful when we were thinking about one of the features that we'll just talk about, like bringing the goodness of SharePoint pages. How can we bring in editing experience within Teams, IA, how we can make it seamless for the users to switch between Teams and SharePoint pages. So there are considerable amount of design choices that we made. We were thoughtful about what simple designs we can integrate that would feel for a user to be right within Teams. And as they switch context and they're now working on a page which they want to be co-authoring, which they want to be writing together with their team, they want to be feeling that they are within SharePoint experience, not having to switch context. But when we were planning this feature, when we were designing this feature, we made some cuts on any additional navigations that user would have to make. So all those choices, we had to come up with simple designs that would include both Teams and SharePoint perspective. So the user does not feel they are switching context.
Yeah, I certainly know that if you get the context switching right, then maybe it is that you're not context switching and certainly not switching apps and not really having somebody to go somewhere when ultimately they don't need to, which I want to get into because the feature that you rolled out, you and the team, this past month, July 2021, my simple use case that I did the other day is at least a teaser to what it is. I had a typo and I'd already added a SharePoint page with some news that I'd put out as a tab in Teams. And of course, when I reviewed it and had already sent out a chat to the group, I went in and I saw that there was the typo, and I, in Teams, edited the page, republished it, and all was fine. And my hope is that nobody ever noticed it. But I think it's at least indicative of one use case of the feature being the ability to edit a SharePoint page in Teams. Can you give us kind of an audible tour of how that works and highlight maybe a scenario too beyond my typo correction?
Absolutely. And you hit the feature right. So we wanted to enable a user who wants to collaborate with their team members within Teams app. So this specific scenario would not need you to collaborate with your team members. You wanted to just edit your page and still be in Teams and be able to republish it, which is what we want to ensure the users are able to do. But if I have to look at a zoomed out view, we would imagine that a lot of end users, a lot of our customers, given the changes in how our working style has evolved in COVID times, how a lot of teams are now working remote, how a lot of teams are choosing to be hybrid in the future world, we imagine a lot of these teams to be using collaboration often. So that's the reason why we wanted to bring the goodness of editing capabilities, publishing capabilities right within Teams. We would easily imagine I would easily imagine like I'm working on a team and I want to have a page be accessible to my team, and I would want them to make edits in the same page without me to have shared them separately on an email thread or on a chat conversation separately with all of them. So my hope would be, if I'm working on a status report, if I'm working on planning an event together, if I'm working on a project deadline that's coming soon, I would want my team to be able to come back to this page, SharePoint page, and make edits in line. We would also want this user or team to be able to make any changes as they would do on a SharePoint site or a page and publish these pages directly to the target audience. So with editing SharePoint pages in Teams, we have particularly focused on bringing all the web parts that were originally available to you on a SharePoint site. So they are now accessible within Teams app. You would be able to add any web part that you would originally work with. You can change styling, you can change any of the web part settings, you can make edits in line, and you would be able to publish it as you would want, as you would do when you were on a SharePoint site. So we are trying to make sure you don't have a separate learning curve. You have similar options and capabilities as you would have, and you're able to publish this to any audience that you would like. In this case, if you have pinned a page in a Teams channel, it is accessible to anybody who's on that channel. We also allow a user to be able to promote it through other channels like Yammer or email, as you would do on a SharePoint page.
That's great. I know there's been so much work over the last few years just to modernize the page authoring experience. There have been, a lot of work around web parts, page layouts and sections, and just the way that the page reacts to whatever space it's in, whether it's a small device, a large screen, and now a collaborative screen, the Teams Hub. And I think everything you just walked through, when I think of using the feature, I think of, the edit button is there. Yep, the web part toolkit is there. The ability to make it look and feel. But I really think the huge value that you led with was the ability to work with others on X being this information container contained within a SharePoint page is hugely advantageous to do that where people are already collaborating, which we know a lot of people are moving to Teams. And back to the not requiring somebody to context switch over to SharePoint, but to really work within the context of the page is a lot of great work. And I know it's been building for quite some time, but to bring this feature really, I think, lands what pages can do for a team in the context of a channel or a tab.
Yeah, that's exactly what our focus area looks like. That's how we want to, that's also a goal as we think about new projects in this area. So that's the thinking behind how we are planning our future work items. That's exactly what we're hoping for.
So if I can pull a little hint of what's coming next, since you said what you're working on, not to break any news or disclosures, but based on the work that you're doing and what you're seeing in the early phases of this rollout of editing pages in Teams, is there anything that you can share that would qualify the goals and aspirations for what the role of pages is inside of Teams within Microsoft 365?
Absolutely. I would not be able to talk about specifics, which you would hear very soon because there's work coming up later this year. So stay tuned for exact details of what we're building. But I would love to share what our thinking process looks behind what we're working on. So the team continues to focus on bringing more and more SharePoint in general, pages and news within Teams. One of the key criteria we have been thinking about when we imagine these new experiences is to enable a user with no prior SharePoint experience to succeed in authoring pages and news within Teams app. So our goal is to enable anybody who's new to SharePoint, who's new to Teams, to be equally successful at creating awesome pages and news. So there's a lot of focus around creation, there's a lot of focus around consumption, and we are really looking forward to making these products work closer together.
So I believe the key word is creation, not to blow any disclosures, but just giving people what they need to create what they need. I know that we've done a ton of work for files. We've done a lot of work for lists. And now to see the work landing for pages in Teams truly brings that notion of this is SharePoint powering Teams experiences. So my hat's off to you for doing that with pages in this phase. And certainly the work that you and the team are doing, I think will be well received, especially in the collaborative notion, or like I did, that sort of, I messed something up and then I can just make a quick correction without too many clicks. And again, not as much context switching. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for your time on the Interzone to share more about the feature and what goes on behind it.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me here. I'm super excited to talk about all these features, all the work that we've been doing, and getting feedback from our end users who will actually be using our features. So I'm looking forward to all the good inputs we get from our audience.
As always, it is great to hear from our program management side on how they thoughtfully bring new experiences or existing experiences into new locations so that you can get work done, especially without having to switch apps or switch context. But with that, let's switch context into teamwork. The first item in teamwork is what you just heard from Nancy in detail, so I'll be brief in summary. You can now edit a page or news post in Microsoft Teams after you've added it as a tab in Teams channels. This continues the modern pages evolution and truly paves the way for what comes next. I do want to highlight that Nancy wrote a specific blog called Edit a SharePoint Page or News Post in Microsoft Teams. It's a great read. It has more screenshots and information than I have in this roadmap Pitstop, and it's also great just to hear it from her perspective. You heard it here audibly, and it's great to read a lot of the information that she put out on the tech community. That's on the SharePoint Tech Community blog, and I'll certainly highlight it in the blog in the show notes for this episode. Next up, for teamwork, custom list templates. Today we have several ready-made list templates designed to make it easy to get started tracking and managing information across events, issues, and requests, and we're pleased to announce that we are now supporting custom list templates. Similar to deploying custom site templates, you will create and manage custom list templates using Microsoft PowerShell, leveraging the add SPO site script commandlet. When users create new lists, they can select one of your custom list templates from the new From Your Organization tab. This new tab will appear next to the From Microsoft tab that showcases the out-of-box ready-made templates from Microsoft. Custom list templating enables your organization to create repeatable list solutions in SharePoint, Teams, and within the Lists app itself. Note, like when someone creates a new site from the SharePoint Start page, you will be able to manage which templates are available to which people based on their job role when they create a new list. And you do this with a simple PowerShell command and associated to Azure Active Directory. This has been an often requested feature, and we cannot wait to see what you customize. The last feature of Teamwork, suggested attachments in Microsoft Planner. When you want to add attachments to a task, Planner will now show you a list of related files. No more hunting through your folders, servers, or cloud storage to find the right one. Suggested attachments show you a list of files that are based on the title and description of your plan and task, as well as the members assigned to the task and files that have been shared with you. This is another great example of Microsoft Graph powering simple actions to make them more relevant and targeted. The main goal being to save you time. In this case, helping you smartly discover files in SharePoint and linking them to tasks. Let us now move on to related technology. The first one is very, very related. It's the next evolution of SharePoint Server on-premises. Microsoft announced SharePoint Server Subscription Edition now in preview. This represents the next step in SharePoint Server journey that's emphasizing the specific needs of our on-premises customers going forward. The always up-to-date design means new levels of reliability and performance, delivering features and capabilities that simplify administration, protect communications and information, and empower people in your organization to achieve more with the flexibility to tailor deployment based on your unique business needs. Which means you upgrade from where you are. You will be able to upgrade directly from SharePoint Server 2016 without having to first upgrade to SharePoint Server 2019. One last call out about SPSE. It will support OpenID Connect. That's 1.0, making it easier to integrate applications and devices with your organization's identity and authentication management solutions. For example, you can enforce authentication policies such as multi-factor authentication, MFA, conditional access policies based on device compliance, and more. There's a lot more in the post that I'll link to with this month's related Pitstop blog, but know that you can try the preview today. I won't feel bad if you pause the pod right now and go play with the preview. I'm happy to wait if you are eager. Maybe this is where we put in some Jeopardy music. And of course, we will wish LeVar Burton good luck as he guest hosts. Hey, that's another Star Trek tie-in. Now that you've installed SharePoint Server Subscription Edition Preview, let us continue on to the next related feature. Next up, post on behalf of in Yammer. We're excited to announce that users can now post on behalf of another user in Yammer. Once approval is granted, internal communicators can use this feature to share news and updates as well as reply to comments on behalf of leaders and their teams. This is not limited to Yammer admins. Any user can choose to delegate access to any person within the network. This is a really great feature for people to be able to scale their reach, especially when they have a great team supporting their internal communications day in and day out. Next, let's talk about watching videos on Office Mobile for Android. Whether it's a training video, a recorded work meeting, an idea pitch from a colleague, or an executive conference, you want the right tools so you can access and play videos with ease. With the new Stream Player embedded in Office Mobile for Android, you can now seamlessly find, access, and view your organization's videos anytime you want from within Office Mobile. Office Mobile on Android isn't just for documents anymore. Now, this last related item will certainly get you nostalgic. I'm certain of it. Some of those fun new Microsoft Teams backgrounds await. Because a little trip down memory lane can be good for the soul, and because after well over a year of remote and hybrid work, we could all use some excitement on video calls. I mean, real excitement. We asked our designers to give a few memorable Microsoft moments their debut as Microsoft Teams backgrounds. So if you like fun backgrounds behind you, why not invite Clippy to your next Microsoft Teams meeting? Help is always one question bubble away. Or show your hand with Solitaire. I think one of the original brain breaks way before Headspace emerged. Get creative with Microsoft Paint. This background is nice and messy and drippy with a subtle word of caution to your audience. Or blissfully attend your next meeting with Charles O'Rear's photograph of the Los Caneros American viticulture area of California wine country behind you, aka that grassy rolling hillside made famous as the default wallpaper for Windows XP desktops around the world. Audio descriptions do not do these backgrounds justice. They're very fun and, like I said, very nostalgic. So definitely click the link in the blog for this one and let nostalgia be your guide. Close your eyes and visualize the future. The future that's just around the corner of our calendars. Here's 2 teasers for what's coming in August 2021. Teaser number 1, Associated Hubs, aka associate one hub to another. Now you will know what all the hubbub is about. Teaser number 2, Microsoft lists applied filters. See what filters have been applied to your view and remove them without having to go into the filter pane. That's it with this month's Peek Ahead. We'll be sure to have more details and other updates within the full SharePoint Roadmap Pitstop August 2021 edition next month. We've added learn more links per feature, plus a list of important resources in the show notes and in the corresponding blog post on the Microsoft Tech community published to the SharePoint community blog. I hope you've enjoyed this Roadmap Pit Stop. Pump the brakes. It's time to relax knowing that you're all caught up. And if anything still leaves you scratching your head with open questions or concerns, please send us your thoughts and comments to theinterzone@microsoft.com. We're here to put our and your best change management foot forward. Thank you for taking that step with us into the cloud, into space, month after month. Until August's end, this is Captain Pitstop saying, live long and prosper on the roadmap ahead.